Let's focus on creating independence between the upper and lower voices and developing articulation by creating a contrast of parts using legato and staccato playing. For a great warm-up, start out by resting the thumb, index, middle, and ring fingers of your picking hand on the low E, D, G, and B strings, and fret a G13 chord. Then, pluck each note at the same time, striving for clarity and evenness in volume. This is a simple but effective way to coordinate the hands and get a good feel for playing fingerstyle. So a great way to develop independence of parts in the fretting hand alone is to balance legato and staccato playing and separate the parts. We have a bass line with the index finger and then the chord with the other three fingers. So there's 4 ways that you can go through these articulation exercises. Everything staccato. And you'll notice that the fretting hand fingers are simply just releasing pressure, not even coming off the fretboard, but just releasing from the strings, which will give it a short staccato feel. Legato feel. Now to really get into the separation of parts, you can have staccato in the bass with a legato chord. And finally a staccato chord with legato bass. The next example takes things a step further by separating the bass note from the chord. The treble notes of the G13 chord fall on the and of the beat 1, while the G bass is played on all 4 beats of the bar. There are essentially 2 things to keep in mind here. First, the fingers of the picking hand are playing on a different part of the beat than the thumb. The bass and treble notes should sound like 2 distinct parts. Second, the treble notes should be played staccato, as short as possible, and the bass notes should be legato, long and smooth. It's the fretting hand, not the picking hand, that is responsible for these differences in articulation. Use your fretting hand index finger to hold down the bass note G throughout the figure, but immediately after you play the treble notes of the chord, lift your middle, ring, and pinky fingers just enough to damp the sound of the notes. This short rhythmic accompaniment contrasts with the long tones of the bass. The 2 parts should almost sound like they're coming from 2 different players. The next example places the treble notes of the G13 chord right on the first beat and again on the and of beat 2. Strive to hold the treble notes out for a full legato quarter note duration on beat 1 of each measure, followed by a short staccato attack on the and of beat 2. Essentially it'll sound like this. The next example takes this concept to the next level by connecting 2 different chords, G13 and C9, with a moving bass line. Fret each bass note with your index finger, except for the C9 chords in measures 2 and 4, where your middle finger should grab the C root. Solo jazz guitar arrangements usually involve counterpoint figures, with a melody and/or solo on top of a moving bass line. It is important to develop the ability to play lower lines with the thumb and upper lines with the index and middle fingers. The next example shows a scale played in a contrapuntal way using the thumb and fingers. Thanks so much for joining me for this lesson. For more fingerstyle jazz instruction, be sure to check out the rest of my fingerstyle jazz guitar essentials lessons, available at acousticguitar.com. For Acoustic Guitar, I'm Sean McGowan.